Welcome to the JRPG Canon, the ongoing project to document the first slice of a JRPG and talk about why it works and what's fun about these games that we like so much. If you'd like a better intro as to the purpose and idea behind this series, check out the first 2 episodes on Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, where we define a lot of terms and explain what we're doing here much better. I'm Sam Allman, and joining me this week to discuss Shin Megami Tensei is my current RPG Book Club co-host, Bernard, and my former RPG Book Club co-host, Michael Rodriguez. So, guys, what was your first exposure to Shin Megami Tensei?
Ooh, good question. You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. My first exposure to Shin Megami Tensei was Persona 3 FES, which... that's probably a lot of people's. So it's a pretty basic answer. Not as basic an answer maybe as saying Persona 4, Persona 5. So maybe I can claim some cred that way. But yeah, I played Persona 3 and it blew my mind. I hadn't really seen RPG battle systems be that good before. And since then, I have played a number of Shin Megami Tensei games. I played SMT4, which is amazing. I played Soul Hackers 1, which is pretty good. I've played most of Soul Hackers 2, which is pretty good. I've played Shin Megami Tensei 3, which is incredible. And I've played other Personas here and there on this podcast, even.
What about you, Rizzo?
Man, it goes far back. I remember Shin Megami Tensei back when I was like a kid, and RPGs were ubiquitous on the PlayStation. And back then, I really liked Persona, but back then that's kind of like all we had was like Revelations Persona. It didn't have like the Shin Megami Tensei moniker on it, I believe. Actually, I think it did. But either way, I knew that at the time that Shin Megami Tensei and Persona were essentially the same franchise. For me, it was back then. And then on the PS2 version, it was Nocturne and then Devil Summoner and then Digital Devil Saga. When we got Persona 3, it was like really iconic back then. And I played through Persona 3, Persona 3 FES, Persona 4. I have played through a lot of Persona games, but I do especially love Shin Megami Tensei. I have Shin Megami Tensei like Soul Hackers, 4, Apocalypse. I go out of my way to collect them. And yeah, I don't know. Shin Megami Tensei has just an incredible battle system, and it's always had a battle system. And I'm really excited to talk about this because this game kind of shows us the inception of what we have right now, from Shin Megami Tensei 5 all the way to Persona 5.
So the very first time that I ever saw that Shin Megami Tensei was a thing was when we started recording this podcast, and I played Persona 3. And then if you're a longtime listener and you've listened to every episode, you've heard me mention every single SMT game that I've played since then. So I've played Persona 3, 4, and 5. I've played Tokyo Mirage Sessions. I played a smidge of Digital Devil Saga, and I played Persona 2 for the podcast.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, it took me maybe half of the first week of playing Persona 3 to be like, oh, this series is really good. There's a reason everybody loves them, and I have been trying to play as many as I could since then. Back when I worked for Google, I had a bunch of downtime on that job, and so I was like, oh, I should play a RPG in my downtime, freeze it, shrink the window down super small so my boss won't see it if he walks by, and I'll pick something iconic from a long time ago, and I picked Shin Megami Tensei for the SNES, but I bounced off of it really, really hard, and I'm not sure why, because as we'll get into in just a little bit, this game had its hooks in me from the first pixel beyond the PlayStation logo. So don't know. I could probably go back and compare the SNES version and this one to see exactly like what the difference was, but I bounced off of it hard.
I think the most important difference is that in the original Super Nintendo version, if I remember correctly, there is not a map button in Shin Megami Tensei 1. You have to go through a menu to get to the map, and that really hurts the pacing. Whereas the PlayStation version, with all those extra buttons on the shoulders, you can just press a button to bring up the map, and it makes the game a lot breezier.
But speaking of the Super Nintendo version and the fact that we're playing the remake on the PlayStation, let's listen to some of the fantastic fucking music from this game, and then we'll talk about the wild history of how Atlus went from contract developer to creators of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise. So I keep using the word wild, and it's not like Wolf of Wall Street, like drug-fueled wildness, but it is weird and not like, oh, Hironobu Sakaguchi wanted to make a fantasy game like Ultima, so he made Final Fantasy, and it was good. No, so Shin Megami Tensei is the third game in the Megami Tensei series, which started with Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei, which was based on the science fantasy novel trilogy written by Aya Nishitani, who would go on to write the scenario and be heavily involved in the first Megami Tensei game. Megami Tensei takes a long time to say. I'm going to say Megaten for Megami Tensei and SMT for Shin Megami Tensei going forward. So, first thing that's super wild is Atlus made 2 video games based on these novels. So this novel trilogy was gigantic in Japan at the time. And so Nishitani was like, I'm going to capitalize on this IP that I have and develop a multimedia whole project. So I'm going to commission a manga. I'm going to commission that crappy ass OVA that we didn't like enough to actually make the video on.
Oh yeah, I forgot we watched that. Yeah, it wasn't good.
It wasn't good. We decided to actually not ever record that episode because there wasn't anything fun to talk about. And then he wanted 2 video games, and so the 2 big systems at the time in Japan were the action game focused Nintendo Entertainment System and the RPG focused PC-88. And since Atlus and Nishitani are punks and steeped in counterculture, they thought it would be super funny to do the action game for the PC-88 and the RPG for the NES, just to be contrary. So Atlus developed Megami Tensei NES with Namco and Megaten PC with Telenet Japan. The PC game didn't spin off a bajillion spin-offs, so I'm not going to talk about it at length, but I do want to say that it's a Zelda-like action RPG that made no strives to overcome the limitation that PC-88 games couldn't scroll the screen. So it's horrible to look at. Every time you move, it updates like pixel by pixel to shift, and it's bad.
I did not know that it was that the PC-88 one wasn't an RPG. I thought it was another version of the Famicom one.
No, I kept this link to send to you guys so you can look at how the screen scrolls. As we continue on to the next little bit.
There's actually a walkthrough of it, of the PC-88 version, and somebody played through the whole thing, and I was like, well, good for you.
Yeah, it's It does not look like a fun time, and people agreed. The NES version was way more popular, so Atlas was like, all right, let's keep cranking them out. So the first thing they did was Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei 2 for the NES, which notably does not follow the plot of the second book, but is rather a brand new story following similar themes and conceits from the first game. The first game in the books had a huge question of like the protagonist's morality. Like he would do something. It's kind of like that famous old Russian early film that it's just a guy standing there, but the first time they do it, it's like happy music, and the second time they do it, it's creepy music, and it looks like he's smiling the first time and he's growling the second time, and the footage is the exact same. Basically does that a lot in the books, and so they liked that and wanted to do more of the morality of things, and so they made a brand new story following the same sorts of stuff. Nishitani did not return to write the scenario, but the people who wrote would be like script editors for the first game, like they wrote the new content and like NPC dialogue and whatever. They went on to write the full scenario, which focused on a post-apocalyptic wasteland where you battle and recruit demons as they're pushed into taking part in a conflict between Lucifer and God. And it's at this point in writing my notes that I learned that Shin Megami Tensei, the game that we played, is an expanded remake of Megami Tensei 2, which was news to me because we didn't get to the post-apocalyptic part in all of the stuff that we played. The stuff we played felt more like a Persona game and not a post-apocalyptic game. So seeing like, oh, Megaten 2 is a post-apocalyptic game, and then it's like, and then Shin Megami Tensei 2 is a remake. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Which is pretty cool. So basically what had happened was at the dawn of the 16-bit generation, Atlas wanted to define themselves as a creator. Prior to Shin Megami Tensei, they had done the 2 Megaten games, but they had also done like the Karate Kid and Cosmo Tank and Rockin' Cats and Quiz Marugoto the World and Spud's Adventure. We're kind of all over the place. Just
I'm sorry, Spud's Adventure?
Yeah,
the one and only
for the Game Boy. It's actually a pretty good game because Atlas made it, but they didn't really have their house style. Like at around this point, you knew what a Squaresoft game was and you knew what an Enix game was, but an Atlas game could be anything. And they're like, we want to define ourselves. What's our favorite game that we've done that defines us, and let's move forward and focus on that. And so their favorite game that they had made was Megaten 2, because while it was technically a tie-in to the Megaten novels, it was really an original game basically in its entirety. It was the Goonies 2 of RPGs. And so all of the things that it thematically tied to Megaten 1 were all more of the original content things that they had put in to adapt it to the NES, and not necessarily tied to the novel at all. So it was basically entirely new. So they got the rights to the words Megami Tensei in perpetuity and decided to remake Megaten 2, make it as Atlas as possible, expand it here, expand it there, change what they needed to. They now weren't beholden to the way that the Digital Devils worked in the novels. They could change things. And so the development team was super duper excited because they got to remake their favorite game. They got to spruce it up, make it their own, and they got to do so with the brand new exciting technology that was the Super Nintendo. So the main team for this game was the director, Yosuke Nino, the producer, Hideyuki Yoko Oyama, the programmer, and who would turn out to be the future director of the entire Megaten series, Koji Kozi Okada, the writers, Ryutaro Ito and Kazunari Suzuki, and the composer, Tsukasa Masuko, with art by Kazuma Kaneko.
The GOAT.
Yes.
Kazuma Kaneko's art is amazing.
Yes. Okada, Suzuki, Ito, Masuko, and Kaneko all returned and reprised the roles for Megaten 2. Cozy was the director of Megaten 2, but he was just a programmer this time around. More than likely, that's because the director of an NES game probably was the programmer, because they had like 4 people that had to make them, and the Super NES increased that number by at least 1 order of magnitude. So, so they got the same people back to make the same game again and just make it as good and put their stamp on the world as they could. And as a side note, the idea that this is an expanded remake of Megaten 2 has 2 weird little asides. So they remade Megaten 2 for the SNES to make SMT. They then also ported Megaten 2 to the SNES in a collection called Kyu-Yaku Megami Tensei. So you can play the same story twice on the same hardware, which is just weird to me. It's like, oh, all right, let's port it to the new thing and let's do it super awesome. And then let's also just port it not awesome if you want. It's kind of like when the Ni no Kuni remake came out and they ported the not remake version to Switch. They did that with Catherine as well.
Well, to be fair, the port is Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2, and it is a full remake of those games. It's just like the same game this time instead of a reimagining. It is a little weird, but Kyu-Yaku Megami Tensei is also cool.
Yeah.
IMO.
Yeah, I wasn't like dogging it. It's just hilarious to me. They're like, oh, we could remake this game for the Super NES. We could also just bring it to the Super NES.
Mm-hmm.
So then flash forward about 6 or 7 years, Cozy, who's now in charge, turned to the current SMT team and was like, all right, the PlayStation is super awesome. Let's make Shin Megami Tensei 3 for the PlayStation. And the SMT team was like, no, let's just remake SMT 1 and 2 for the PlayStation and make them even better once again. So the version that we played is the remake of Shin Megami Tensei, which is an expanded remake of Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei 2, which is an original game based on the video game adaptation of a sci-fi novel, which is not. I really liked Ultima, and I wanted to make my own, like Yuji Horii. And so it's what a wild way to start the 3rd biggest RPG franchise of all time. And
yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, if we wanted to like actually start at the beginning, we would start with Digital Devil Story, but Shin Megami Tensei is cooler.
Yeah.
And like you explained, it sounds like it's sort of the start of Atlas really making it its own independent thing.
Yeah, for sure. This definitely, it's like how we were like, all right, we're going to start at the beginning. We're going to start with Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest is an imagination of Ultima plus wizardry. And we didn't start at the beginning with Ultima or wizardry. It's kind of the same thing here, where this is Atlas's Shin Megami Tensei, which technically had 2 prior games and also wizardry. But this is really the first Atlas game.
That's the reason why they named it Shin Megami Tensei, because it was Megami Tensei before, and Shin Megami Tensei means new reincarnated goddess.
We'll get to that. It's actually in the game, and I brought that up. So there's a lot of things about this game that are important to like video game history that I couldn't weave in here, so we're going to weave them in as they show up and just start talking about the game as it starts. So we'll listen to some more amazing music from this game and then start talking about what it's like to actually play it. Okay, so as we mentioned previously, we're playing the PSX remake of SMT1, and I'm super glad that we are. Like I said, I had bounced off of SMT1 SNES a few years ago, but the PSX remake starts off so strong. It has an attract mode, which the SNES version doesn't, but the attract mode is like assembly computer code that they define a function, and that function is Latin, like from the Bible type shit. So it's like literally you're watching them create the program that would summon a demon, and they do it by creating a function that's just Latin, which I think is fantastic. It also intersperses this code being typed up with scenes from the game, and although the game only ever has one camera angle, the scenes that they pick are gripping. Like it'll show like just your mom, and then it'll flash away, and then it'll come back, and it's like someone being sacrificed, and then it'll flash away, and then it'll come back and be like a creepy dude in a science coat, and it's like everything that they picked is just cool right away. And then part of the code types out Shin Megami Tensei as Shin Digital Devil Story using Shift JIS, and so as they would hit the space bar for it to pull up the kanji, it changes it to New Megami Tensei, and then he cycles through the kanji, so it goes from New Megami Tensei to Divine Megami Tensei to True Megami Tensei, and settles it on True. So it's not new, although they want you to know that it's a pun on new and divine and true, but the kanji that they choose is True Megami Tensei. So all of those people on GameFAQs and on the playgrounds over the years that have said that the game is called Resurrection of the Death Goddess is wrong. It is Resurrection of the True, New, or Divine Goddess. None of it is the Death Goddess. It's the wrong Shin.
I'd never heard that it was Resurrection of the Death Goddess. I thought it was. I just knew that Megami Tensei was like Goddess Rebirth or something, and I knew Shin could mean new, so I thought it was New Goddess Rebirth or something like that.
Yeah, I had heard Resurrection of the Death Goddess,
but then I saw this and I was like, oh, it's true,
which is super cool. So you click new game, and on the PSX version, you can choose normal or hard. Hard is the difficulty of the SNES game. Basically, the only thing they did was tweak rewards and encounter rate. So it's just simpler to play on normal. It's not as annoying, which might be one of the things I bounced off on the last one. But I like how they do it normal and hard and not normal and easy, because you can never tell if you need a game to be easier than it is, but you can always be like, oh, I've played an RPG before, give me the hard shit. It's a lot easier to move you from the default to something harder than to know if you need to go from the default to something easier.
It's true.
So when you start your game, you're in a trippy Faceball 2000 level, and it's all pink, and you're just being pulled through it. And the music is fantastic. You don't get to navigate the maze. It just pulls you along, which with the music and the creepy faces and the demons and the pink and everything, it really sells home that you're dreaming right away. A creepy face asks you to pick your name, and then you're immediately asked to make long-term gameplay affecting questions and assign your stats. And there's no way at all to know what any of them do, besides maybe the manual, but the manual wasn't translated to English. So I don't know if it's in the manual, but I hate when games do this, and Cozy does too. In one of the things I was doing for my research, he says that his biggest regret on Shin Megami Tensei 1 is the pacing. Notably, you start this game and you're in this cool vibes and everything, and it's like, oh, here's a menu, assign 18 points, and it's kind of a lot to ask somebody to do. It's a lot more than pick your 4 party members or just start the game.
Yeah, now that I think about it, the very effective opening might be more effective if you didn't have to choose their stats at that time. maybe you could choose your stats when they join the party.
Yeah. And like you only have to use them in a fight on the forced loss. So it would make more sense on when they join your party for real, then you can set their stats. But yeah, you every time you name a character, you also set their 18 base stats, which is just wild. So because I'm in the future and we had a deadline, those of you listening to this as it comes out will know that you were supposed to be hearing us talk about Final Fantasy VII today, but that fell through. So we scrambled together this episode over like 3 days. And I'm really bad at video games, so I looked up a guide to see where to put my points. So I did it for my main character, and then you immediately have 2 more heroes that you name and kit out. Those are the Law and Chaos heroes. They're called that somewhere right now. They're handy names to talk about them. The Law hero is introduced on a Jesus cross that you save him from, and the Chaos hero is introduced by getting teabagged by a demon. So I named them Aslan and Caboose for the Jesus and the teabagging. The Let's Play that I brought up for notes calls them Cain and Abel, which is probably better.
That's pretty good. I kept looking up long plays, and I found like multiple ones which use the names of the characters from Shin Megami Tensei 4, which I found interesting. Because that one also has like a character who's like law aligned and a character who's chaos aligned.
I also just named it Law and Chaos.
Makes sense. So after recruiting Law and Chaos, you come across a woman bathing in a lake, which notably, the Faceball level prior was just pink and weird, but this is like a place. So it immediately catches your attention. She's also naked, which also catches your attention. It makes her seem super important, and she is. Her name is Yoriko, and she says that she's been your partner for eternity. And she's been waiting on you to show up. But before you can really talk to her, your mom yells at you to wake up, because this is a JRPG and your game has to start by you waking up and being late. So you wake up and you check your computer, where someone named Steven says that demons have been unleashed on this world, and to fight them, we'll need to use their power against them. So download this totally trustworthy file called notatrojan.bat and run it with administrator privileges, and it won't delete your System 32 and steal your credit card information. And surprisingly, it doesn't. It's an actual, like, it's real. I should probably hit up all these Nigerian princesses that have been emailing me, because it worked in the video game.
Which already, by the way, is like enough to unsettle me, like to receive an email like that. I would have just immediately thought it was a scam. And so, you know, back in the day, like that story plot was a little bit exciting. Now, not so much. But I don't think they would have anticipated all of the Nigerian prince scammers that we had gotten.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, probably some people who got that email thought it was a scam, and they don't get to be the protagonist of the game, do they?
That's true. Later, when Steven's talking about how only 3 people actually downloaded it or whatever, he's like, maybe it was too hard to use. And I'm like, no, I'm just not going to install and run a program from a cold call on the internet. So we leave our room, and our mom says that there's been a bunch of police sirens this morning, and she's surprised that they didn't wake us. And she gives us our allowance and tells us to pet our dog before we leave. Our dog is named Pascal the dog, and I love him. I pet him every single time that I can until I can't anymore in this game. So now we're able to go and explore the world, but everywhere is blocked off with a police blockade because of the craziness that had been happening that morning. I don't remember if they tell you at this point that someone was killed in the park,
yes,
or if that's tomorrow. But
the mother talks to you about that before you head out.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember if she did it this time or the next day. But so we can't really explore anywhere except for the mall. When you're navigating the overworld, it's like a crude Google Maps type thing, like you're a pin that you're following along. It's exactly like the one in Persona 2, talking from the future, but at the time,
and in a lot of other Shin Megami Tensei games.
True. I just haven't played any of those others. But when you get to the mall, you're you navigate them all in the first person dungeon crawler mode, and not like a menu like you do in Persona 2 and other things. So I thought that was weird, like in a good way, to navigate the towns and stuff and not only the dungeons in first person. So there are a bunch of places to look around in the mall, including an equipment shop that I completely ignore. And
did your mom need to tell you, use this to buy protective gear?
She should have, but she didn't, so I didn't. I like walked into the equipment thing and I saw they were all kind of expensive, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I should blow everything on me and then I'll get these party members and have to kit them up, so I'll wait until after they join your party, which is the wrong idea because they join your party fully equipped, and also if you're saving over your spot, you can't leave when they join your party. So sucks to be me. So eventually you make your way to a hallway where some dude is threatening you with his knife, but then suddenly there's a ghost instead. In this version, they don't say anything. There's just a ghost instead of the guy. In some of the other versions, it says that the ghost jumps out and rips out the man's throat and kills the man in front of you. But yeah, so you fight the ghost and you take the man's knife off of his corpse, because all these police everywhere taking evidence from some corpse in public is totally fine. There's nothing else to do at this point, so you make your way back home, where Steven has a new program for you, which allows you to talk to the demons and recruit them, which is super cool and interesting. So back when Atlas was making Megaton 1, they wanted their RPG to be different than Wizardry. Like the first mock-up was just attack, magic, defend, and they're like, we want to do something cool, so they came up with monster catching to be their cool new thing. And now Ash Ketchum is world champion and he gets to retire, and we've come a long way since then.
Which is like such a hard thing for people to even believe, that like an Atlas game did it first. But
which is
here we are.
I have now set up Bernard to actually.
Well, I was Sam and I were both looking into the history of like monster collecting in video games, and it's really complicated. And as far as I can tell, there's not like a good article that like clearly explains it. The earliest example I could find was apparently in Hack 1.0 from 1984. You can tame some of the enemies, but it's not like the main focus of the story. Then also there's a game which if I recall correctly, is called Cosmic Soldier, which is a Japanese RPG from 1985, if I recall correctly. I closed the Wikipedia page for it, which has some dialogue system where you can recruit allies and stuff. So Megami Tensei series did not do it first, but as far as I can tell, it might have been the first one where it's its main gameplay gimmick. Mm-hmm. And in any case, it's very important.
Yeah. It if it didn't do it first, it did it best, where Hack 1.0 became NetHack, became Rogue, became roguelikes. Very big and important and cool, and obviously important, but not for monster catching. Cosmic Warrior, Cosmic Hero, Cosmic whatever,
Cosmic Star Heroine,
Cosmic Star Heroine is not a game on the size of Megami Tensei, and so it definitely pioneered it, if not coined it. Like they definitely took it and ran with it and made it a thing. Definitely. Even way before Dragon Quest V, which is the most Pokemon of it all. They were doing it for almost 10 years before that.
Yeah, Dragon Quest V is usually cited as the inspiration for Pokemon, and it probably is, but Megami Tensei is probably like what inspired Dragon Quest V to some extent.
Mm-hmm. So we go to bed and have a blue dream this time, where we find a girl being offered up as a sacrifice to the Dark Lord. We try to stop it the only way we know how, by giving her a jokey name and assigning her stat points. This works somehow, and the ceremony is thwarted. But instead of joining our party, she says that she won't be able to join us for a while, and even when she does, she'll have to leave us again. We wake up and we have a new program from Steven, which is the auto mapping program. So now we can check the map to find our way through mazes without needing graph paper. And since we're on the PSX, we can press L2 to pull it up at any time. And we're living life like it's golden. Our mom tells us that we were calling out for the girl next door in our sleep last night. And she refers to her as the name that we chose a few moments ago. I chose Aisha from Atelier because I knew nothing about this person, and she just said, say my name. And that was the first thing popped in my head. But since she refers to her as the name from our dream, we're like, that's weird. And so we go to talk to her, not plot wise, but as the player, like it's very compelling to go and do it. It's weird how much playing is happening so far, and there's very little gameplay to talk about because you're kind of just pixel hunting at this point, but it does the pixel hunting so good that it kind of just feels like the obvious thing, even though it's not ever been the obvious thing.
I would say this is like the most normal RPG as this game kind of gets. Is like the very beginning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even then, it's in modern day Tokyo, which no other RPGs were at the time, with demons and monster catching and all these other things that make it super unique. And this is the most normal that it gets. So we head next door, and the girl there said, we obviously ask her about a dream, and she goes, what dreams? I've never had any dreams, which is the stupidest thing to say. But she obviously doesn't know that she's a party member, so we can't really do anything with her yet. So we head out to the city, which has demons now. As you're moving your little map quest along, you'll get in random battles. And if you're like me, the first one that shows up, you try and recruit them, but you fail. So he gets to have a free turn against you, and it's a little goblin which attacks twice a turn. So he attacks 4 times before you can attack 1 time, and he kills you, and you game over the very first time that you can in a video game.
Welcome to Shin Megami Tensei.
More specifically, welcome to me every time I try to play a Shin Megami Tensei game. I started Persona 4 Golden, I think 4 times before I settled on just playing it on Mega Easy, because I had already beaten Persona 3 FES, which is pretty hard, and it doesn't have an easy mode. And I got to the end of it and I did okay. So I'm like, oh, I don't need to be on super easy on Persona 4. Right. Let me go to, maybe I'll kick it up a notch and make it a little harder on myself. Okay, never mind. Let me do it on normal. Okay, never mind. I'll put it on fucking easy because I'm a bitch baby and I can't play these games. Like we mentioned earlier, your mom had mentioned that someone was murdered in the park, and now you can make your way down to the park. The barricade has been moved. So instead of the police blockade, there's an old man who knows us by name, and he says that the balance of the world is beginning to fade, and if the balance is tilted too far to either side, the world will fall apart. But he believes that we might be able to wield an immense power, and he wants to see it. So we get pulled into a dream, which is gray this time. But now that I'm in the future and I've played it, this is the second dungeon. This is the Echo building, and it pulls you all the way through the critical path to get to the first boss, which is cool. But there's no way I would remember that to be like a tip on how to get through the next thing. I just thought it was insane that it walks you through the entirety of the second dungeon in a cutscene. But
I kind of appreciated it because I didn't want to go through it myself.
True. At that point, you're level 1. You don't have a party, and it would suck. But you get to the boss at the end, and he kicks your butt real bad. And the old guy's basically like, "Oh shit, never mind. I guess you're not all powerful and shit. Whatever. So we try to go home, but there are policemen in the road, and they catch us. Or like, oh, are you character name? You're under arrest, and they throw us in jail in a hospital, which is never explained.
Oh, it's because your fingerprints were found in the area where the guy died from the ghost / demon. Because
makes sense.
You took the knife from that guy.
Which makes sense, but not the fact that they put us in jail in the hospital. But
don't NPCs there say they're doing weird experiments or something?
Yep. Yeah. It's like the occult. This is like kind of like the beginning, like Shin Megami Tensei 3. It's very the like the start of that, where like the series really enjoys schools and medical facilities to introduce creepy stuff.
Yeah, Shin Megami Tensei 3 starts in a hospital. Persona 1, you start in a high school, then you go to a hospital.
5.
Oh, I haven't played 5 yet.
But yeah, so that brings up one of the things that I really like about this game is it is kind of Dark Soulsian in like the plot is you get thrown in jail and then you go and you do the thing, but there's lore from all the NPCs, and y'all obviously found more stuff than I did, and it's dense and cool and good.
Yeah, the people around you, there's like a gang like in the hospital, not in the hospital.
In the
it's
mall,
the first place that you go to in the mall. There's a gang that's there, which we end up going back to. But if you go there first, they like kick you out. Mm-hmm. And there's just this introduction to the game. If this is like what you're playing at first, I was actually kind of very surprised to be reminded of what it was like, right? Because I played this on the iOS. I played the iOS version when it first came out, and I didn't get to play it again since. Yeah. So the mood setting here is just very, it gets to occult very quick. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like the way the story in this game is told, because there are very few of what I would call cutscenes. You're just going around and you're talking to NPCs, and like later on, there's not going to be a cutscene that tells you the place is now under martial law. You've just got to go around and you find NPCs who you technically might not need to talk to, talking about martial law and how the American army has shown up and all this stuff, all this crazy stuff that happens later on. You just have to find it out. I really like it. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It really does. Like, even though now we are moving our character, it still feels dreamlike, where like things are happening around and to you, and you're kind of just exploring it and figuring it out as you go along. And the music being fantastic is a good part of that. So in our jail cell in the hospital is the law hero, good old Aslan himself. We recognize each other from the dream, and we learn that the girl next door was Aslan's girlfriend, and she's been missing all day, and he wants to break out of here to find her. It's really easy to break out of there. Not hard at all. I thought it would be more than one text box, but it's not. So we get out of the cell and we investigate the cell next to us, and we find Steven, the creator of the virus we downloaded earlier. It's Steven as in Stephen fucking Hawking, which is insane to me.
It was designed by Stephen fucking Hawking. Designed basically Stephen fucking Hawking.
Yeah, it's nuts. So Mr. Hawking recognizes us as recipients of his program, and he tells us some backstory. He was trying to invent teleportation, but accidentally teleported a demon from hell into our world. He was able to defeat and kill the demon, but he got his shit rocked, and that's why he's in the wheelchair now. But he used what he learned from that to make the demon negotiation program that we have to try and fight fire with fire. But some dude named Godo decided that accidentally bringing hell on Earth was a feature, not a bug, and he's been trying to use the terminal to summon Lucifer ever since. Steven gives us the demon analysis program, which is just the demon Pokedex, which is insane that the Pokedex is from Megami Tensei as well, and that's really cool. So now, after all of this previous ado, we're now actually playing the game for the first time, and we're in our first dungeon. You navigate the dungeon. It's a 3D maze, like a first-person dungeon crawler, like Wizardry. You navigate by either pressing forward, turning to the right, the left, or turning completely around. Sometimes when you move, you'll have to interact with things, be it stairs, a treasure chest, a door, or most often, a random battle. The random battles are turn-based and round-based, just like in Dragon Quest. And like in Dragon Quest, you have a few things you can do to take your entire turn, or you can choose to fight and tell each person what to do on their turn. There's also an auto battle, which is really cool. But what Dragon Quest doesn't have is fucking guns, bro. You have a gun in this game, but it's basically just a normal attack that will affect your enemies, which
until you get ammo. Cool. Until you get ammo that can do status ailments on them, and then you actually use one of the characters as like a supportive gunner who just like silences and makes demons sleep.
That's cool. We didn't get that far today. But the main cool, interesting thing that makes the battles different is you can choose to give up your turn to negotiate with the demon and ask them to join you. It's not nearly as dumb as the one in Persona 2, but it's basically the exact same as the one in Persona 5. You can choose to be either nice or aggressive and choose between two dialogue choices for each of the questions that the demons ask you. And it's not obvious what's the right thing to say, and you have to play your cards just right, and then they'll join you. After they join you, you can summon them to use them in battle, but it costs yen to summon them, and then walking with one equipped costs magicite, or whatever the fuck the MAG resource was called. I forget.
I think
magnets.
How do they work? And so you can use them in battle. The magical elemental system that SMT is known for is here, but it doesn't have any of the press turn stuff that Nocturne really started. So it's just some demons will be weak to certain elements, and I recognized a lot of the spell names from having played future titles, but we didn't really get to dig into anything with that.
So what you're saying is this game is actually simpler and easier than Persona 3, yet still you kept getting owned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's correct. The main reason is the fact that I waited too long to buy equipment. I should have gone immediately there and suited myself up, but instead I was squishy and did 4 damage for the entirety of this playthrough today. So you make it to the top of the hospital where the hospital director is. He asks if you've already gotten your body modification surgery. So definitely the police are complicit in kidnapping kids to run science experiments on them, which is cool and fun and not scary. And we tell them that we have, and he calls us liars and then turns into a demon, and we have to fight him. And we have our first boss, and it was real hard for me because I dealt 4 damage and I could do no other actions with my main character. But Aslan had a lot of magic and was able to kick ass there. Thankfully, he had a healing spell too, so I didn't lose.
Yeah, for me, I just attacked and used Zahn and Dia as much as possible.
Yeah, there's not a lot to choose from for this first boss, but it is cool looking, and that's what's important. So after you defeat him, you get his ID card, and you can use that to leave out the front door. At which point you are back on the map, and you just pixel hunt some more until you get into your next dungeon. We actually played through the next bit because I didn't know how what the opening loop would be, which is how much we play for these things, is the opening loop, and it felt like it would be clear out the section of the map and go forward, but it's really figure out what dungeon you need to go and do the dungeon and do that a whole bunch of times. As I learned, we didn't get to the bomb being dropped and the time skip and the game actually starting. We didn't get to a lot of the cool stuff that this game definitely has. So I'm probably going to continue playing this game at a leisurely pace, and we'll see all of those things. But we're not covering them today. So if you listeners are listening to things and you're like, oh my God, you didn't even talk about ABCXYZ, which is the most important part, tell me about those cool important parts. And we haven't so far ever revisited something that we didn't actually talk about enough. But if enough people say, oh no, the game actually changes completely once you get to the post-apocalypse or whatever, maybe we'll come back and do an addendum to this episode. But for now, let's just hop on over, listen to one final SMT track, and then talk about our final thoughts and what we liked and disliked about this section of the game.
Thing that I want to say that adds on to what I was saying earlier about how I like the indirect storytelling style. Mm-hmm. One thing I love is that the game doesn't really tell you how to feel about things. Shortly after this point where we stopped, we have the amazing scene where you find out your mom was eaten by a demon. And when that happens, you have the Chaos Hero with you as well at that point. And the Law Hero is like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. And the Chaos Hero is like, shut up. You can't, don't try and comfort him. I'll just make it worse or whatever. And it's just a very quick interaction. And that's all the game says about this huge thing that just happened. And it just trusts that you have the deep inner life to have the whatever strong reaction to it that you need to have.
You know, that dichotomy even exists when you save the third soul, which, you know, they go talk about why are you gonna, we have to help this person, and then no matter what you choose to save the girlfriend or the third person that we save, you know, law and chaos will have a discussion about it no matter what. I think that my favorite thing about this, and I think that it's hard to sort of capture in the same way across the games that we've played, is the tonality of Shin Megami Tensei. It feels like a Shin Megami Tensei game from when you turn it on, and like you said, the coding happens, and from that moment you know that you're playing a game that is, the game feels taboo. Right. Whenever I was younger, wanting to play this game, it felt really taboo because my parents would not let me play this at all. But this game, even with some of the translations that use adult language, when you're talking with the gang members, they tell you to get the fuck away or something like that. For this being released back when it did, I think that it's really important for people to know that it was very edgy. You know, and I hate saying that, but it really is one of the only few RPGs that plays within the themes and the aesthetic that Shin Megami Tensei plays in. I think Shadow Heart's Covenant is the only other RPG that I think sort of takes on this sort of tone.
Yeah, and I just realized, so Pokemon is an SMT clone. Is this why all of our parents said that playing Pokemon was trying to summon the devil? Did they just accidentally get their Japanese game history correct?
I think so. I really, truly think so.
I remember I had a friend, not even a friend's parent, tell me that Pokemon are named after demons. And even as a child who accepted everything I was told, if it was something that, if I was being told that something is scary and satanic and evil is going to make me go to hell, even then I was like, there is not a demon named Jigglypuff.
No. Definitely not. But one thing I love that I found out because I was using a guide, but you could have stumbled upon it because the way it's set up is very easy to have stumbled upon it if you are someone's stumbling upon it. So it's the section that we played but didn't talk about. So after the hospital and after your mom died, Pascal joins your party as a demon. The only demons that you can successfully negotiate with right now are pixies and goblins. And maybe ghosts, I don't know. But all three of those, if you go to the Velvet Room, it's not the Velvet Room, it's the place in the park.
They call it the Heretic Manor in the translation that we're playing.
Yeah, so you go to the Heretic Manor. If you try to fuse your demons, you can't fuse any of the three that you get. But if you check again after getting your fourth demon, Pascal, all three of them, so no matter which one you got so far, even if you only get one, all three of them can fuse with Pascal to be a level 43 Cerberus, which makes it super easy mode. But it's also, your dog is going to protect you. And as you get to the end, your dog does protect you and puts off the apocalypse for a couple more cutscenes at the end. And it's super cool that like you could do that, because in the normal rules you can't summon something that's higher level than you. That's the main impetus to go out and level up, is so that you can summon better demons. But here you can summon Pascal because he's your dog and he's level 43, and he'll win the whole thing for you, which was really cool.
It's a wonderful introduction to the idea of summoning and, merging demons together. Like, it really is a fantastic introduction. And when I think about the whole Cerberus Pascal thing, I just think it's like it's a really good game design choice, because they didn't really have to go that far, because you could have just done it the long way. But when you, with the story attached to Pascal plus the demon summoning, what a really good way to attach lore to teach somebody how to play the game.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely, because Pascal leaves at the end of the Echo Lab, whatever it's called, Echo Building, because Pascal leaves, this is the pirate frigate in Super Metroid, where you can be like, look how cool Samus is. Everything is broken. Now you have to be nothing again. It's like, oh, we're going to give you this level 43 monster and wipe the floor with everything. And it's going to show you that fusing your demons is how you get better, new, stronger ones. But we're going to take away the easy mode from you, and now you have to do it yourself. And every game, the reason so many games do that is because it's a really good way to make you like to put a carrot on a stick. Like, if you just started Super Metroid the way that you start Metroid 1 and you just are walking around as a little weakling, you don't know that you're going to be a badass. But if you start the game as a badass and then you have to go and be a weakling again, you're like, oh, that's the shit. I'm gonna like it. I'm now upset that I'm a weakling, and I want to not be a weakling anymore. So I'm going to explore and play the game and get good at the game so that I can be the badass that I was a second ago. And it's cool that it's optional, but also cool that if you are bad at the game and walking around trying to figure something out, you'll probably stumble upon it. Kind of reminds me of, I think it's Toy Story 3 for the PlayStation 3. the first time you play a level, all of the platforms are smaller than normal. I mean, I guess they are normal, but on the first time you play it, they're smaller. And then every time you lose, they kind of get a little bit bigger and have more forgiving things, so that the people who need the most help will get it. And the people who don't need help playing platformer games can just go along and have everything. And so it's kind of like that here. Like if you're getting your ass kicked in that dungeon or whatever, and you spent all of your yen on potions instead of equipment or whatever, you can stumble into finding Cerberus and win.
I think that if Shin Megami Tensei, this game was trying to communicate something. It was trying to communicate, at least what we've played. We got a really good understanding of the almost law chaos / neutral sort of ideals, demon summoning. And there's just something that's a little bit uncomfortable with the storyline, whether it's how like they just kind of like throw you in it and you're left to your own devices, or the plot itself. It kind of feels almost more like a mystery novel-ish, but I tend to find that Shin Megami Tensei games work the best that way. Is when there's like a murder and now you have to go be like Scooby-Doo and figure out what the fuck is going on. But I would say that we got a really kind of good basic understanding of what Shin Megami Tensei is about when it comes to this game. And I don't know. I just, like you said, like, I think I'm going to continue playing it because it's pretty fun.
Yeah. I definitely have not bounced off of this one, and I will continue to play it, especially like I have it on it's one of the like 4 games I have on my Steam Deck. It's a lot of reading, so it'll probably be my curl up in bed and play something horrifying to scare me when I go to sleep. But so as always, I like to do the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I called it something else, but now I can't remember what I called it. So the good is definitely the vibes, and I had mentioned, I think it was in Dragon Quest. Now that I'm thinking about how poorly written Final Fantasy 1 is, was definitely in Dragon Quest, where every person is saying their own unique thing, but they're all kind of talking about how you need to go to the east and scorpions will kick your ass if you don't learn magic yet. But none of them are saying it directly. This game does that so well, where like I knew to go next door to get my next pixel would be next door to go and talk to the girl. I knew that my next pixel would be at the park. I didn't know that there would be a guy in the mall, but that was the only place to go. Everything else is blocked off. All of the NPCs kind of point you in the right way really, really well. And it was engrossing because of that.
You say you didn't know that there would be a guy in the mall, but actually there is someone in the mall. I don't know if you have to run into them because of the path you take, getting the coffee for your mom, or if it's just really easy to run into them, but they'll say, there's a guy with a knife behind the pharmacy. Mm-hmm. And even naturally you're like, guy with a knife? I want to check that out. That sounds fun and safe.
Yeah, what you two are just talking about here is, and just for the listeners at home, like if for some reason you've never played a Shin Megami Tensei game, you can find both of what they just said in like a lot of these games. Like you said earlier that you like Shin Megami Tensei 4. It's one of my favorite Shin Megami Tensei games ever. And you had a lot of moments, especially in that game, where you were just exploring, talking with NPCs to figure out other side quests. And it was really, really cool. I don't know, just I didn't expect to be so impressed with Shin Megami Tensei, at least this version of it. And here I am. I want to know what the fuck happens.
Yeah, I definitely want to keep going. I'm glad. So, although this episode was commissioned back in September of 2021, I'm glad that it took me so long to do it so that I could play the PSX version, because the translation only came out like 3 or 4 months ago. But this PlayStation version is fantastic. If you are like me and you tried playing the original and you didn't really like it, play the PSX version. If you,
But why wouldn't you just play the official release?
oh yeah, we didn't even bring that up. So like,
God, it makes me so angry.
So like Michael said, he played it for the first time on the official release on iOS, which I would play it too if I fucking could. But modern software is horrifying and poorly supported, and so because the license that I don't have the Wikipedia up, so I don't remember what it was, but the localization team, because Atlas wasn't going to, Atlas normally doesn't localize their mobile games at all, but some localization company saw this as the new release as an opportunity to bring over one of the most important games in JRPG history, so they localized the iOS version, but that license ran out, so they couldn't do updates to it, but you could still purchase and download it, but they didn't have the opportunity to work on it anymore. But because modern computing is modern computing, when iOS 11 came out in 2017, it broke the display something or other that it needed, and so you can't play Shin Megami Tensei legally.
You need you need to have purchased the device on an iOS device that is before iOS 10, and
Never
good
updated
luck.
Yeah, there was a window of 3 years where you could legally play this game in English.
Mm-hmm.
3 years.
3 years. But yeah, so now you should 100% pirate it until they just like, surely the fact that this localization is sitting around somewhere and it being an important game, it will get ported to Switch or PS5 or something soon. And if Atlas is smart, they will just put that localization that they already bought and paid for in a new version. But until that happens, pirate the PSX version. It's really good. But yeah, so this game is good and I want to play more of it, and I'm going to allow myself to take as long as I need. So we're not going to be covering this game next week. We are going to be covering Yakuza Kiwami, the remake of the first one. Will be the next one of these. Maddie's out for two weeks, so we're squeezing in 2 of these right here. But we're also right now we're able to do more than normal. So me and Bernard are both going to try and burn through this backlog that we have, so then we can start taking commissions for these again. Because I know what games I want to play, but I like stupid shit. I want to know what stupid shit you guys like and want to make me play.
Didn't I commission this episode back before I was a host?
Yes, you did. I almost said as much back when I said I'm glad I stole this person's money in September of 2021, but that person was present. So yeah, that's where we'll call it for the week. If you like what you heard today and you have suggestions for other games for us to play on the JRPG Canon, you can commission episodes over at www.rpgbook.club whenever those commissions are open, and we'll play literally anything you tell us to in this format. If you want us to play like Super Mario 64 in the JRPG canon, I will make it obvious that it is a commissioned episode, but I'll do an episode on Super Mario 64. I like playing video games and not only RPGs.
You might have noticed that the next game is Yakuza Kiwami, which has some structural elements similar to JRPGs.
It's a JRPG.
I wouldn't call it that, but
it has text boxes.
Okay, fair.
It is definitely more. Since I call Zelda a JRPG, it is definitely, we can at least agree, way more of a JRPG than Zelda is.
Yes, more of a JRPG than Super Mario 64 is.
Yes, and the seventh the seventh game in the Yakuza series is a Dragon Quest game. So
yes, they did eventually just decide to make it Dragon Quest.
Yes, but yeah. So we'll play anything you want if you go and do a commission. It's probably will be more fruitful if you don't make us play Super Mario 64. But I mean, it's your money. I'll do what you want. I'm a monkey. I'll dance. So if you commission or just donate to the Ko-Fi in general, you'll also get access to our Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before everyone else. One of those is going up tonight as of recording because I was supposed to put it up on the 1st and I forgot. But you'll also be able to vote on polls to determine what we play on our main podcast feed. If you donate $5 or more a month, we read your name and it sounds a little like this. Shout outs to Floris, Kaldron, Freddie Rodriguez, Bernie L. Taylor, AA Ron 524, Anthony Lerma, Vimk, JFro Prime, and Doho. And then if you donate $20 or more a month, we read your name and a 1-sentence plug of your choosing. Just kind of like these guys. We have 2 luminaries. Eliza Tantavi is our newest one, and they want you to go to critical-distance.com, which is an aggregator for good games criticism and journalism. And our other luminary Carr is a dentist, so his shout out is not for his Twitch stream, but for your own mouth. And he asks that you brush your teeth twice a day. Most importantly, the time right before you go to bed.
How convenient. I'm going to do that tonight.
Nice. For the JRPG Canon, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And I'm Michael Rodriguez.
Go and play some games.